Hi guys, it's Nicole and I have a process video today. This is for the Erica Rose Creates design team. I shared this a couple weeks ago over on the Creative Chaos Facebook group. I am just now kind of carving out time to edit some videos that I have been avoiding. So I'm going to share this one today and see if I can just kind of knock out a bunch of editing today and get kind of back to posting a little bit more frequently. Now, when Erica sent me product to play with, she included the Beach Bound stamp set, and I've used it, I think, 2 or 3 times at this point, and I immediately, like when I first saw it, I kind of had this idea to do like a section of a layout that had like ink blending and maybe some masking and then a bunch of like tone on tone stamping. And I never really found like a layout that it would have fit. So today I was like, you know what? I kind of want to just play with the stamp set and see what happens. So I am going to take, these are some like large alphabet dies from Alt to New. They are older. I bought them when they were on clearance. I'm not sure if this is like an essential alphabet that they keep in stock or not. If it is still available, I will link it below. If not, my suggestion is just something that's kind of like 1.5 to 2 inches tall, I would say. These are a little bit shorter than 2 inches. So I cut them out with some masking tape, not masking tape, masking paper. I don't know where I'm at. And the clip before this, I kind of mapped out where I thought I wanted things to be. I knew that if I was going to be doing any kind of masking, that I needed to make sure that things were centered, things were level. Even saying that, it's not until I get all the way done that I realize that the U in the word summer is a little bit higher than the others. We're going with good enough. We never go for perfect here. I do make sure to erase the lines that I drew around the title so that that doesn't get trapped under the ink. The other lines at this point I'm not really concerned with, mostly because my original thought process, and I had a square die out in the previous clip, I wanted to kind of have photos and pattern paper in like a square, not a square, like a frame made of squares, I guess would be the best way to describe that. And then maybe like some journaling and some interesting stuff in the middle. That was kind of my like loose plan. And I do tend to kind of sketch that out if I'm trying to come up with something on my own. I did not sketch it out. It is not going to end up working. We'll talk about that when we get there. At this point, I am, like I said, I'm just kind of playing around. I was surprised that the pencil marks pretty much disappeared underneath the ink. I don't remember if I had to erase them or not. I guess we'll see together. Like I said, I filmed this a while ago. I actually worked on this during one of Erica's online crops. So we're gonna kind of see what past me was doing. I did use some washi tape, and I actually picked this one that had like a pre-printed border on it, and it was easier for me to use that to get a straight edge. Basically, I just want to have like a white frame around all of this, and I want it to be flat. Like a simpler method would be to just trim this down when I get done and mount it onto another sheet of paper, but I was just kind of really wanting to play around with masking and just kind of more like technique heavy and see kind of where that led me. And I think I ended up with 7 or 8 different distress oxide colors, just kind of like a fun rainbow. And I'm doing just like a freehand, what's the shape? Sunburst, triangles, I don't know. Everything's kind of meeting in the middle. I feel like it looks worse on camera than it does in person. Like in person, this looked well blended. So I'm not real sure why on camera it looks rough, but I promise in person, everything looked like it was blending pretty well. I tried to keep a heavier amount of ink like on the outside edge and have it kind of go lighter in the middle, because I know that if I kind of start mixing stuff in the middle, and I tried there and I was like, nope, don't do it. You start mixing all those colors and you're basically going to end up with brown. It'll be like pale brown, but it'll be brown. So I just tried to go more heavy handed on the outside edge and less pressure on my brush as I get to the middle. And again, my process at this point, I'm still thinking that I'm going to have this like frame of photos going around, and a lot of this is going to be covered up, and it's just going to kind of be, you know, peeking out behind this frame that I'm thinking that I'm going to build. I did go ahead and I added some water droplets. I wanted, like, it's summer. The photos that I'm using are going to be my kids playing on the patio in a blow up pool. So I wanted to just kind of have that like messy kind of water feel. But if you guys know me, you know, I don't get like, this is as mixed media as I get. This is kind of a level that I'm okay with. And that's it for me. So this was when I was like, okay, let's play around with the stamps and let's kind of see where this is going to go. I do think if I was going to do this type of design or this type of technique again, that I would cluster my stamps a lot closer together and have it like more of like a tighter pattern. And I would probably implement more like second and third generation stamping as I get to like the middle area where it's lighter. I did kind of get smarter as I went around, and I would stamp like the first generation where it's the full saturation of ink closer to the edge, and then I would go ahead and stamp again without re-inking it and get a second and third generation, and I would just put the stamp closer to the middle of the layout. And I basically, I think I ended up with like 3 or 4, I think 4 different acrylic blocks that I just put a stamp on each side and just kind of went to town. I would, you know, kind of just go from one shape to the other and just kind of fill in. I didn't create like a pattern. I tried to go random. I'm not super good at random, so we wing it here. We wing it, we light the dumpster on fire, and we just kind of hope for the best, and sometimes we end up with something that is really fun. I do think that, like, thinking about where my original concept was coming from and then where I ended up at is it's different, but I do end up liking the final layout. I think it's fun. I think it's really bright colored. I think I got to play around with inks and blending and stamping and that kind of thing. And that's something that I a lot of times don't make the time for because I know it's going to take a while. But this was just kind of knocking around in my brain for a while. Like I said, ever since she sent me the stamp set, I wanted to do like a 6x6 section or like a 6x4 section and kind of have it almost be like a cut apart card that I did something like this on. So instead, apparently this day my brain said make it the whole sheet instead of just a piece of it. So I definitely think that kind of every time I play around with a stamp set and stuff like this, it kind of generates other ideas for different things that I want to try. So I kept the stamp set out. It's going to hang out for a little bit and see how many more layouts I can go ahead and pull this out and use it on. It was 115 yesterday while we were at the water park, so I am definitely in like full on summer mentality here. It's hot, a lot of water activities, a lot of bright colored stuff going on. So I'm excited to kind of make some more summer themed stuff and get a lot of these like random photos that I have of, like I said, we go to the water park every summer. I think the last like 4 or 5 years I've been doing season passes, because to me I'd rather go for 2 or 3 hours instead of having to pay just for like a day pass, and then I feel like I have to be there for the whole day to get my money's worth. So we've been doing the passes, lets my kids get some energy out, get some swimming done. I kind of dunk myself when I get too hot, and then I get a lot of Kindle reading done. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? it's done. I thought about trying to fill in with more stamps, and I was like, no, we need to just, at some point you have to stop and move on. This was so satisfying to pull everything off and see that I didn't mess it up, like everything was good. Now, again, I still think that I'm going to come up with some sort of square frame thing going on. So, knowing that I wanted everything to be the same size, I didn't want to have, I didn't want to sit here and try to cut all these to the same size myself. So, I pulled out a set of square dies and kind of let them do the work. It does leave a little bit of like a stitch detail around the edge, but I'm okay with that. This was around the point where, as I started putting things down, I was like, okay, clearly I didn't print enough photos for this to kind of go all the way around. And I'm looking at the papers that came in the Echo Park summer collection that I was kind of pulling some stuff from. And I went with this like vibrant rainbow color. And the Echo Park collection was very like, I would say like pastel ice cream vibe. Two completely different things. So at this point, I'm actually on video chat, or might have been the crop. I don't know. I am over here just like dying inside trying to figure out what am I going to do. And if I can't make a decision, I move on to a step in the process that I have made a decision on, and it's not going to affect like future decision making, if that makes sense. Like I know that I need to do something to make these photos stand out, and I know that I don't want to mat them with paper. So quick kind of solution to that is to just take white acrylic paint and kind of dab it on the edges. It's going to stand out from all that bright color, and it's not going to make another layer of paper. I did take a bunch of scraps, and I mean, a lot of these aren't even like square, but I'm cutting them out with that die because, again, I still think I'm doing this frame. So I'm thinking, okay, if I cut scraps in squares, even if they're rectangles or whatever, I can kind of just like match them up with the color on the background and use these little pieces to kind of fill in. It was not working. So at this point I'm like, okay, maybe I'll use these little pieces and just kind of do like little messy mats behind them. And maybe I'll put everything below the title. And this was when I was like, okay, this will work. I'll go 4 photos across and then 3 rows total. And I will just match up little scraps of paper and embellishments to where they're matching the background colors, if that makes sense. You guys know I like a tone on tone. So this was where I was like, okay, this is what we're going with. This is what's going to work. We're not going to overthink it. We're just going to do it. And I am going to kind of lean into some like minimal embellishing because there's so much going on in the background, and the background is kind of, I've said this before, if my background is doing the heavy lifting for me, I don't feel the need to do like 3 clusters or a bunch of embellishing. I'm just going to kind of tuck little things here and there to add a little bit of interest, and that's going to be good for me. I did end up fussy cutting a bunch of stuff from some of the A-side papers. Like there was one that had a bunch of little bikinis on it, and I was like, these will work for like the pinks and yellows. There was a popsicle pattern that I was able to fussy cut some of that stuff from, and then I think there was one that had just like a bunch of random summer icons from it, where I got like the pineapple, the watermelon, the phrase that says cool. Basically I just looked at it and I looked at what color something was. And apparently I am chit-chatting. Okay, thank God I've moved on. I was about to stop and edit that out. I'm so sorry, guys. I will say that I enjoy crafting while video chatting. I've been doing it more recently. It's definitely helped me stay on task with like deadlines and stuff. But it does make the editing of the video a little bit more work because I'm cutting out things like me chit-chatting and my hand flapping around. So yeah. Unfortunately, the angle and the way that this cutter is, you can't really see how I line I line this up. I've said this for years. This is just muscle memory of kind of knowing your trimmer, practicing cutting strips like this to kind of figure out what works for you. I just kind of turn my head and like really angle it to where I can see the edge of where my blade's gonna hit, and I rely on muscle memory. Stuff like this, I really like to just do like a long, skinny journaling strip, and I added a little popsicle to the S and the R on summer, and that was pretty much it for me. I just realized I didn't date it, so I do need to do that. With that, I am done with this, and I will catch you guys next time.